Hi, everyone. We're so excited to be here today. My name is Allyson Havener. I'm the VP of Marketing at TrustRadius. And TrustRadius being a review site, we have millions of buyers that come to TrustRadius looking at product information, looking at customer reviews. So we're going to cover how to generate demand from those customer reviews and using customer voice in your own channels. So I have two amazing marketers with me today. So Rebecca, I'd kick over to you, and I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, I am Rebecca Stone. I am the Senior Vice President of Customer Solutions Marketing at Cisco, which is really just a fancy way to say product and solutions marketing for Cisco's networking business.
And I'm Rowan Tonkin. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Planful, and we help companies with their financial performance management.
Well, great. It's so awesome for you guys to be here today, like I said. And so what I wanted to kind of kick us off with is some of the stuff that we're going to cover today. So I think one thing is the buyer behavior, the buyer's journey has completely changed over the last few years. And we're seeing more and more importance put on the customer voice. We release a report every year. It's called the B2B Buying Disconnect. And what we've seen year over year is that buyers continue to be really skeptical. They are even more risk adverse after being in this challenging economy, but budgets are tightening up. The buying committee is growing. They need more information than ever. So how do marketers navigate this, and how do they really use their customers to help drive demand? So I'll kick it over to you, Rebecca, and I'd love to hear just like what's going on at Cisco. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing, and what are some of the changes that you're seeing in your buyers' behavior?
Yeah, I think that there's a number of things. One is that our buyers are just moving more digital. We have historically been a very customer centric sales organization, as well as a huge partner organization. And as the customers start to do more and more of their research online, as they start to really do some of the evaluations themselves before they approach our partners or sales teams, we're really having to make sure that our messaging is aligned across all of our digital touch points, as well as with our sales and partner team. So making sure that that message stays consistent across all of those different places is really important. I think the other thing is a lot of the times it's anonymous. We have big buying committees that are part of a lot of our sales for our upmarket, for our larger organizations. But then for our smaller organizations, it's probably just one person coming to a site to do some of the research themselves. And so making sure that we are having all of those different points of view and different opinions represented are really important. And I think that's where customer reviews become far more important, because being able to represent each of our different types of customers, obviously there's more gravitas when it comes from one of their peers rather than from us.
Yeah, those are all really good points. And that's also what we're seeing a lot in the data is that buyers are more digitally, they're all mostly millennials. There's a big group of them at over 65%. Are millennials, and so they're digitally native, they're used to social, they've grown up in kind of this age, and we're really seeing that kind of take hold of the buying committee. Rowan, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in buyer behavior and how you guys are addressing that at Planful?
Yeah, I would say that the office of the CFO and selling into the office of the CFO has historically been IT led. And that's changing, I think, with the more digital native buyers, CFO technology becoming more prevalent, and the office of the CFO becoming, we went through that phase of MarTech and then sales tech. I think now is something we calling the golden age of CFO technology. They're becoming much more technology centric. And so at the same time, you've got that happening alongside the fact that their workforce is changing and vendors are changing. And so it's a really interesting time for those buyers. So there's a lot of buyer noise out there. They've got to disseminate that noise. And then they've also got to figure out, okay, is this application for me? Because there are a lot of CFO tech out there. And so they're looking at, communities and word of mouth and sites like TrustRadius to gather that intel to say, is this product for me? Does it fit my needs and my unique requirements? And so I think that that big shift that's happening is across all of CFO technology, and something that we've adapted to over the last 5 years or so. And there has been a big shift post pandemic as well. And so the demand curve is really different now for that technology.
And so you've made some really good points around the idea of like this, the CFO being involved. It's not just CFO technology. You kind of see the CFO becoming more and more involved in any purchase decision. Rebecca, are you kind of seeing that across, like, you guys essentially have to sell across the entire C-suite?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Cisco, we historically sell into IT, but that does not mean that we don't have to convince the business user as well as all of the financial users, and including anybody within the finance team. I talked a little bit about the fact that we have to be very, very thoughtful about that committee of buyers and how we speak to each of the different parts of the committee. I think even more than finance, though, for us, it's security and IT connecting, and so making sure that the CISO, the leader and head of IT security, as well as the traditional CIO buyer, are aligned, and that we have a storyline against both of those. And then there are other parts of our business, like our application development business, AppD, that is looking at CTO and app development and the DevOps team. And so we have to think across SecOps, IT ops, network ops, and DevOps as well. So there's quite a bit of operations ops teams that we have to think about, that we're appealing to.
And so, Rowan, I know in your strategy, a big piece of it is kind of giving like a lot of information up front. Customer reviews are a part of that, but it's also like as much product demos and information. Can you talk a little bit about that strategy and how that's kind of helped accelerate demand?
Yeah, I think 10 years ago, you probably weren't seeing many tech vendors out there with product demos easily accessible, ungated on the website, right? There's been the trend to ungate content. Some businesses have ungated all sorts of views into the product, and that's certainly something that we've done over the last few years, and that's really been driven by a lot of buyers want to remain more anonymous throughout the life cycle of the buying journey. A lot of buyers need to share that information far and wide throughout the business because we got more buyers involved in the buying process. And so a big strategy of ours has been really to show off the product. I mean, there's lots of players in this space, and we believe in our product. We believe in our application that it's going to deliver the value. So why not show it off? Why hold it away from everyone and say, hey, we know you're going to make this really expensive decision, but we're not going to let you consume much information about it. It's not very buyer centric. And so one of our company values, our number one company value is customers. And so we want to give them the access to become a great customer. And the more they learn up front, the more, the faster a sales cycle actually ends up being. And so we've seen that shift really. I'm not sure if it's changed demand, but it's changed the way that we need to monitor, manage, and kind of interact with the demand that comes our way.
Yeah. And Rebecca, what are you seeing? I know that Cisco really activates through their partner network as well. So it's more, having that customer proof, having product information, but also enabling your partners to really accelerate your demand.
Yeah, I think, I mean, my belief is very much like Rowan's, in that the whole point of marketing is to meet the customer where they are, not not to make it difficult for them to find out the information that they're looking for. And so in that way, we really think about each engagement as reinforcing our overall message. So using things like testimonials and promoting them in social media, or by responding to customers online when they have an inbound request, or putting the blurbs from our reviews on Cisco.com when they are pulling data sheets and other materials is really important, because it's about that consistency. Wherever they are, we're going to introduce them to information that we understand is valuable to them, and make sure that they have access to it. I love the idea of demos. One of the organizations that I help support within networking, Meraki, has been known for the last 10 years of sending out free demo equipment, and allowing our customers who like to turn the knobs and test things and see how things work themselves to really build trust in the products and in the hardware that we do. And about 2 or 3 years ago, when we had to shift because of supply chain issues, we started to move a lot of those demos online, and it was something that was brand new. But we had a program that allowed us to move some of the demos of how they were able to test our equipment without hardware in hand, but by using the software to see it. And that's actually been one of the directions that we've now shifted some of the demos. So being able to mix and match all of those different things in the way that the customer wants to see them, I think is the most important thing to keep in mind. It's not about you, it's about your customers, and making sure that you are giving them what they want.
Yeah, and I think that really aligns with a lot of our research and buyer expectations. And they're looking like we added pricing pages a few years ago onto TrustRadius, and a lot of vendors were like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to show pricing up front," but it's one of our most trafficked pages and has the most engagement is around pricing. And second to that is product demos. And so I think that is just really aligned with the buyer expectations. And then when they get into the reviews, they're essentially just trying to get all this like hands-on product information readily available, because they're used to just having so much information in general readily available, right? You start to see kind of like where their maybe preferences are coming from, like the B2C world, and you're really seeing that in B2B now. So how are you guys thinking, like, do you see this as really just like being upfront, being transparent, as like really standing out in front of your competitors? I think customer voice is a way to stand out in front of your competitors, but how are you guys thinking about that? And you guys kind of come from two different sectors, and you guys sell mostly, Rebecca, Cisco being one of the biggest brands in the world is probably a little bit different, right? And I know Planful, you guys selling into the finance world. So I don't know, Rebecca, tell us a little bit how you're thinking about like the competition and standing out.
Yeah, I think you always have competition, no matter if you're a large brand or a small brand. And I think for us, it's how we manage all of the different competitors that we have. Because of the breadth of our portfolio, there are lots of different companies that are trying to compete in certain parts of the market, but don't really cover the breadth. And so some of it is about being able to tell that story of what your differentiator is, and making sure that you are clear about that. I think the second piece, though, is those customer reviews. It's hard when you have new customers who are trying to compete, new competitors who are trying to compete on depth of features in one particular part of your portfolio, to convince your customer why maybe that feature doesn't matter quite as much as making sure that everything works together, and that the complexity that you are going to introduce by introducing more than one vendor to your network is going to complicate things. And so being able to transition and help to tell that story, again, using customers, is just so important to us. And I think I can't stress enough how much I believe that peer conversations are the best way to build any brand, and to continue to build a brand no matter how big you are. Because that's who they trust. It is easier to talk to somebody who's been through it, and who is living through it at the same time that you're living through it, or maybe slightly ahead of you in their journey, to help you catch all of the mistakes and not make the same mistakes.
And Rowan, what are you seeing kind of on the competitive side, and how are you taking your approach?
Yeah, I think on the competitive side, one of our biggest competitors is the humble spreadsheet. And, a lot of folks are, looking at how do we migrate away from that type of process. And then they're looking at a choice of various vendors. And so the primary question most of us ask when we're buying something is this for me, right? Does it fit? And so the question that those buyers are effectively asking is, is what Rebecca said. Has someone bought this before? Have you shown me the path of how I'm going to get up and running? And that might be, I want to look at an industry lens, or I want to look at, comparable technology. I want to make sure the same ERP works with this technology, for example. And the best way to do that is to really distill your company narratives and your brand narratives. What do you want your company to be known for, and what do you want your products to be known for? And so as you then think about that, as Rebecca said, the best people to tell that story, obviously we can do it, we're good marketers. But there's no one will enjoy that truth, right? They're going to want to hear from customers. And so it's about how do you get your customers to tell those stories, to tell the stories about their implementation and how it was successful, or to demonstrate, hey, these are the companies that use this technology, this is why they chose it and their intentions. And when you're able to do that, that starts to resonate. I think it starts to resonate when they're all engaging in communities that we don't have access to, right? Like, we have access to lots of intent data around, right? I've got intent data coming through my ears. But there's a lot of places where I can't get it from, and they're offline conversations. And I want my customers to basically echo what we're saying in the market when they have those offline conversations. And so when they're using tools like TrustRadius, hopefully they're echoing our brand values, because that's what we're espousing and talking about and being consistent with.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that's also, again, what we've been seeing in the report is that when people look at customer reviews, the number one thing that they want to see is someone relatable to them. And I think that goes to show kind of like when you're building your strategy, looking at like, okay, who are my ideal customers, getting them on the record. And it doesn't all have to be like 5-star reviews, because the second thing that they really, really value is the content. So to your point, Rebecca and Rowan, around the expertise, and they want to understand, the ins and outs of using said technology. And then the third thing was actually not like an aggregate score of a product, but they like to look at the features and how they were scored like individually. Again, just getting that in-depth knowledge as much as possible up front. So I think that really aligns with buyers' expectations. So we've talked a lot about strategy and kind of the execution of this on your team. And I think one piece is like measurement is really important. As marketers, we've gotten really good at measuring things and telling a story and making a case for our programs. So Rowan, tell us a little bit about how like you measure the impact of kind of customer voice or reviews, maybe not on just demand, but maybe the sales cycle in general.
Yeah, I think we do all the common measurement. How many reviews are we getting? Are they all 5-star? Because that's obviously, they're really important to us, right? And the breadth for us, we sell to multiple audiences, breadth of reviews, all of those stuff. I think, something that's different though is trying to understand what the impact of putting all that social proof up front has on your sales cycles. So understanding, do sales cycles, are they getting shorter? And that's not happening right now. So it's like, how else can you look at that? Well, another way is to look at, okay, how many deals required a customer testimonial as a percentage of closed won or closed lost? And where in the sales cycle did that happen? Obviously referencing is a big part of any good go-to-market strategy. We actually look at trying to reduce the number of references because we're putting social proof up front. The more you can validate with that buyer earlier on, the more they trust you, the less likely they are to need a reference. And that really helps in protecting your other precious commodity, which is your customers. They don't always want to be doing all these references at the end of quarter. So we tell them, if you leave a review, you're likely to get less restaurant calls. So try that out.
Rebecca, how about you?
Yeah, I think for us, I like the idea of needing less customer testimonials to close a deal. But two of the things that we use are, one is just how many reviews we're getting in, because it's not just the total number of reviews, but the freshness of reviews. If you're seeing reviews that are 2-3 years old, then customers are less likely to really engage with them as if hey, it was last week or just 3 weeks ago or something like that. So number of total reviews that we're getting in is important. The second thing I think, which was great with TrustRadius, was that we ran some tests and pilots about embedding some of the quotes and pulling some of the quotes onto actual offer pages on the Cisco.com site. And for the pages that we tested, we saw anywhere from 250 to 400% increase in engagement and in click-through rates, specifically click-through rates to take take part or click and commit to the next step in the engagement. And so I think just by changing that, it was a huge amount of change. And I think it goes back to that's what customers really want to see, is that validation from their peers and some understanding from their peers about what's working and what's not working. And so those are the two KPIs that we've really tracked in order to make sure that we're thinking about engagement and how we want to build on it.
Yeah, and I mean that, to both of your points, is like around putting the customer voice front and center as much as possible, and having that really validate essentially like your claims that you're making in the market and the power of that. And so I just want to thank you both so much for your insights here, giving us some real life examples of how you're generating demand with your customer voice and customer reviews. So thank you both so much, and I hope everyone really enjoyed their session.